Welcome to the Confident Retirement Podcast. Is doing the most important things alone a good idea? How comfy are you with your choices when it comes to life's biggest decisions? What is real peace of mind with financial confidence, and how can you get it? Kris Flammang and Mark Peachy are the founders of LPF Advisors in Sarasota, Florida. On the show, they bring together the best and brightest minds to share with you how to have a more confident financial picture. They empower listeners with simple, common sense and financial wisdom. And now, here are your hosts from LPF Advisors.
Hey, I want to welcome everybody to the Confident Retirement Podcast, brought to you by LPF Advisors. I am your host here, as always, Kris Flammang. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming Mark Fontanella on the podcast. He is a benefits services specialist with Hanson and Ryan and Insurance Services, headquartered in Totowa, New Jersey. Did I say that right?
It's Totowa, but it's okay.
Totowa.
I heard worse.
I'm a dumb Midwesterner. So Totowa, New Jersey. Their mission is to protect their community by teaming up with reliable partners who will seamlessly provide superior coverage and services that are unique to each client's need. Mark, thank you for being here and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun. So I'm sure you and Hanson and Ryan have kind of an interesting history. So take us through a brief explanation of the firm's kind of history and their why. I found the why on the website, and what led you to where you are today.
That's funny. So the agency now is fourth generation owned. So it's been passed on 4 times so far, and that's the goal, I believe. So the current CEO, they have younger children, probably I think their oldest child is 12, and their goal is to eventually get them involved in the agency as well, and grow it to pass it on to the next generation, which is pretty cool to think about it that way. And basically what got me here was I worked at a local bank in town, and the owners of the company who were banking with us, and she kept trying to get me to come work for Mark. You're going to be great. You'd be great. We're going to, you'll make a lot more than you make where you are right now. And I was a younger guy. I was probably 18 years old, 19 years old. I went to college for something that's not even related to insurance. So eventually I said, you know what, let's try it out. And I've been here ever since. So it's been nice. Really
I think that's true of a lot of people who get into professional financial services of some nature or the other. Usually their college background doesn't really affiliate with what they end up doing, but although there's some carryover, mine was in psychology, so I use that a lot every day in what we do with our clients, but that's a big component of it. Okay, well, if you could go back in time and kind of tell that younger you, give them some advice, tell them something that you know now that you wish you knew then, what do you think you would tell them?
So I still have that problem with being the younger guy in any situation. And it's more or less to just hone your craft. So it's like going to the gym. It's not going to, you're not going to see results right, the first day that you're there. It's hone the craft and study and learn it every single day, whether it's reading blogs, whether it's listening to podcasts, whether it's YouTube videos, whatever the case is. There's so much free information out there that you can really become an expert despite your age, despite how long you've been in the business. People, I think, respect the fact of how much you know, even if you haven't really been in that industry long enough. So I guess my advice would be don't take everything personally, because sales is cutthroat, as you probably know, and people knock you down in order to I'm still trying to figure out why they do it, but not to take it personally and just stay the course. It's okay to be told no, to focus your energy and focus elsewhere.
Yeah, you can't be easily offended.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, coming out of college, I went to school for marketing and sales. So part of my degree was sales, and then the other part of the degree was marketing, which marketing is behind the scenes advertising and basically draw up the plan for the sales guys to go out there and get it done. And that's what I wanted to do. Sales was not something that I really saw myself doing, but yeah, I always liked dressing up. I always liked being out there, talking to people, shaking hands. So it came naturally later in life. But when I realized that the big part of sales was rejection and objections, it was a shell shock, because I was younger. I was 20, 21 when I got into it, and it was tough. So why do they feel this way about Mark? They don't know me. It wasn't Mark. It was the sales guy, Mark. It was whoever it was coming to their office or talking to them on the phone. So
Yeah.
I would have, if I could go back in time, and be telling him to toughen up a little bit.
Toughen up, Buttercup. Okay. So are there some areas of your practice, some areas of the business that you are especially liking right now, or that you like best?
Yeah, I really like the life insurance aspect and the Medicare aspect. I feel like I do good work. I feel like I could pat myself on the back after I deal with a client. And it's not so much pushing for the sale. It's more so, this is what can happen, laying out all the options. And that's what I like to do. I just lay out, give them 3-4 options possibly, and tell them every single scenario that, hey, this is possibly what could happen. This is what I've seen happen. And then, basically make them aware of all their options, and let them pick what they deem fit.
Now, do you find that when you lay out the options in 3 or 4, I think that's good that you're taking that approach. You often find at the end, they look at you, because this happens to me, and they go, well, what would you do?
Yeah. And, I always bring it back to, if it were my mom or dad or my grandmother or my grandfather, to make it seem as if there is, there's trust. And I wholeheartedly would never do anything to my clients. I have an obligation in order to help them. So yeah, there are times where they ask me, what would you do? Well, this is, if you fall into this bracket and you're healthier, I would go with this one. If you think down the road, you're going to experience some sort of ailments, whether it's genetics, whether it's, things that you see right now happening with your health, then I would go with option B. So it's always about them and what could be on the horizon for them. I typically don't sell for today. I sell for 10 years down the road, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that, a lot of times people make the mistake that they think, well, I'll just lay out all these choices, and the person, it'll be obvious, and they'll come to this conclusion, and they'll pick one assertively. But a lot of people, just because of their personality bent, is they would like to be led, meaning that not that they can't make a decision, but they like to be led. They want to be led to help them make the choice, because then they feel better about it, because someone that cared about their situation and their best interest made a suggestion to them on what they should do. I think that's great. Okay, so let's flip that around a little bit. Are there some areas of helping clients that you find most challenging? I don't mean like types of people. I just mean like the areas that you find really,
sure,
it's more of a challenge for you.
Sure, yeah, and that's the health insurance side. So the Medicare aspect is anybody turning 65. Anybody that's already 65 or older, that's the Medicare side. But before that is the regular health insurance, whether it's your privately, if you're buying it as an individual, or the group. So in New Jersey, I know state to state, New Jersey has no law that requires small businesses, or small business, I should say, in order to have a health insurance plan. So they will always ask the question, well, what is the benefit? What's the benefit of me having a health insurance plan? And I'm sure you're familiar. The rates aren't forgiving. They keep going up and up every single year, and the benefits just keep going down and down and down. And that's a big struggle. And you find yourself wondering, when is it ever going to alleviate? When could it ever level off? And I don't have an answer for it, because, I have the age old, very watered down version of, oh, hey, Kris, yes, your small group, if you have a policy for them, a health insurance plan with vision and dental benefits, you'll retain your top talent, and people will stay longer. Some people don't think that it's worth it sometimes, and it's tough. It's really tough. So that's
unless a business owner is very maybe altruistic, or they really need the coverage themselves,
right,
and it's tough for them to see the benefit in having a plan for the whole business. Yeah, right. That is a huge challenge, because it does. I don't think it just keeps, the premiums just keep going up, and
they just keep going up.
Benefits either level off or they keep going down. Okay, so that'll segue into the next question that I have. So for all of our listeners, let's pretend we know nothing about any of this insurance stuff. And you always hear this term like open enrollment. Now, I know there's open enrollments for this, for Medicare and that type of thing. But I saw on your website that you kind of give assistance with that, or you guys, that's an area of your expertise. So for everyone, what's just a definition or a brief summary of what open enrollment means?
Yep. So open enrollment, there's 2 open enrollments that we deal with. We deal with the individual open enrollment, which is anybody that's, they typically have a lot of realtors that are my clients that don't get health coverage from their brokerage. So they're buying coverage directly from the carrier. So they have an open enrollment period from November. Typically before COVID, it was November 1st to December 15th. But because of COVID, they extended it to January 31st of this year. So you could change. So the open enrollment period is for you to change your plan within that period for January 1st of the next year. So it's just to make a plan change. And that's for anybody that may not like their policy. Maybe they want to drop down in coverage, want to jump up in coverage. And the reason why open enrollment exists is to protect the health insurance companies, where people aren't just picking up a policy, getting a surgery, and then dropping the coverage throughout the year. It's to protect them. That's for the individuals. For Medicare, it's the same thing. People who have a Medicare Advantage plan, which we could get into that later on, they can change their drug plan coverage if they're on a Medicare supplement plan. And then also for a Medicare Advantage, if they don't like their plan, they can always switch to something else for the new year. So I know some people, they always ask, when can I change this? You have open enrollment. It's not, it's not like you're chained to the desk and you have to wait here until it's time to change, or never, I should say. So those two times are the only times throughout the year where somebody can change without something called a qualifying life event, which there are certain segments of the industry that maybe if your spouse passed away, or you're having a baby, or maybe you moved out of state and you moved somewhere else, wherever the case is, there's a whole list of them as well. We could always get into later, but
is divorce a qualifying event?
It is.
Okay. I had a question on that the other day from a client, and I wasn't for sure. Okay. Not that I'm advocating for that, but I just wanted to clarify. Okay, so let's switch over to life insurance. You said you kind of have not a passion for it, but you do a lot with that. So where do you think people are missing the boat on life insurance just in general? Are they underinsured? Do they have the wrong types? Where are they kind of missing it?
I saw a stat the other day that was pretty crazy. 61% of Americans have life insurance, so the remainder don't. And some people, I volley with the problem all the time. People ask me, well, what good is term insurance if I don't get anything back once the term is up? It's a great question. But what we try to do is, the term insurance is where you buy it typically at a younger age. That way you get through that chunk of life where expenses are high, whether it's college, whether it's mortgage, whether you work a job that something bad could really happen to you. Like there was an event that happened recently where there was a person who worked in, I'm drawing a blank here. It was a manhole. He would lift manhole covers. He would go down on like those little pull ladders that go down on the side. Actually collapsed. Manhole collapsed and he died. And he just had a 9-month-old baby and obviously a younger wife. They were both younger, probably 31, 32 years old. Then he died. So somebody like that, where it's something that, typically the trigger events are birth, marriages, stuff like that. So I don't know if he had a plan, but there were some friends of him that ended up calling our agency in order to get a policy because of that event. The trigger event was his death. So the big miss is probably people don't know if it's a necessity. Some people aren't really too familiar of what the different types of life insurance are. A lot of times it's cost. If you're looking for a larger policy with, let's say it's whole life or permanent insurance, it's pretty expensive because it's guaranteed if you die, that whoever it is that you have as your beneficiary will get some sort of payment. Term insurance is cheap. It's cheaper per month, but then again, it runs out after time. So some people, they don't like the idea of paying whatever it is per year and never having anything build up in terms of value. So I think the biggest misconception is I don't think people think that it could ever happen to them. I don't know if people ever realistically think that they pass away unexpectedly early.
I agree with you. There has to be, it's like someone they know or someone they're related to has to happen to them before they're kind of woken up to that. I deal a lot of times with clients who they have an urgency to get their estate plan stuff done, even though I'm not an estate attorney, but I advise them on that stuff because they know somebody where someone died intestate and they had to go through probate, right? So then that motivates them to want to get that done. Right. Same thing with insurance. If they know somebody who passed away or they're related to somebody, I'm like, I gotta look at this. And I think the other hard part is people just don't understand it's a peace of mind thing. I mean, you have car insurance, you got house insurance. You're just required to have that stuff, right? By law, exactly. You have to have it. Where with a lot of these other ones like disability and life and some of the other personal ones, it's an option that they're picking. And they're just making a decision between expenses that they might do. I'd rather go to Starbucks every day while on my way to work than pay the $40 a month for the term insurance.
Basically,
Yeah.
you break it down like that. Sure. I had a financial advisor friend that I just spoke with on Wednesday. He said something that stuck with me I was thinking about it the whole night. He said he'd been in the business for quite a while, probably wrote a good amount of life insurance policies throughout the year. So at some point, he was bound to have to pay out the check for the death benefit. And he's sitting at the funeral home, concerned or visibly upset because he felt as if he didn't sell them enough life insurance at that time. If it was a smaller policy because they waited too long or they couldn't afford it and they just got a smaller policy, whatever the case was, he sat there and he was actually conflicted by the idea that, hey, I should have sold them more because they weren't expecting this to happen so soon. So I think that hit home, and it was almost like that Kobe Bryant effect. I don't know if you ever read that article. When Kobe Bryant died, the next Monday, life insurance applications were up 51%, 55% from normally what they were, which is, again, same thing, the trigger event of somebody passing away.
Okay, so let's switch gears. Thanks for going through that with us. Let's talk about, on your website, you have a section about personal insurance. How are those defined? What kinds are they? Let's start there first.
Yeah, so the personal lines insurance would be everything. Any toy that you can buy, whether it's automobile, whether it's car, boat. Typically, any personal articles. So engagement rings, wedding rings, furs, I know, are something. The high expensive items in your home, whether it's a clock or something like that you have that's worth quite a bit of money. You could get insurance policies that protect them in the event of a loss, a fire, something. Maybe flood is a fine line. When it comes to flood, sometimes if you don't have flood, you might be able to get some sort of coverage with the sewer backup. Yeah. But there's got to be, obviously, there has to be some sort of proof there. So,
we're in Florida, so I know all about the flood insurance industry. Yeah, that's a. Well, I won't say the word, but it's fine challenging to say the least. Okay, yeah. And what ones do you find people are the most underinsured when it comes to the personal insurance lines?
Typically, it's flood. It would be the flood. I mean, that's I know you're saying personal, but there are some people that I met that don't insure engagement rings, that don't insure wedding rings. And I don't know if there are people that just bought the engagement ring out of one of those little 25-cent slot sheet things, but those are big costs. So we found that a lot of people don't either bundle that with their home or auto, or they just completely don't have it insured whatsoever.
Okay. All right. And how do you discover that stuff with clients? Are you looking at their coverage on an annual basis or reviewing that with them?
Yeah, typically every year, if that we have their policy and it comes up, whether it's a 6-month policy or a 12-month policy, we do a review. We shop it because since we're a broker, we have multiple partnerships with different carriers. So we'll shop it every single year to make sure the rate is still competitive. And then we'll look at everything. And there's obviously we have a questionnaire that we have them fill out in the beginning. And the question is there any jewelries or furs? Is there any sort of high-priced items in your home that you'd like to insure as well? And if those are unchecked, we always make sure we ask the question again just to make sure everything is up to date. So,
can we switch over to Medicare? I know we're jumping around, but I want.
That's okay. Yeah.
What do you find is a big misconception that you see the clients that you work with having with Medicare? Because it certainly isn't simple, right? Like any government program, their simplicity has gone out the window.
The part in the letter, so people get confused with original Medicare with Part A, Part B, and then when it comes into if they're looking at Medicare supplement plans, the name is a plan with the letter. So they get all confused. Oh, Part A, all right, but I have my Part A. Am I good? Just let's list everything out. So you have your Part A, your Part B. If you like to go whichever route, you have two routes you could go. You could do the Medicare supplement or the Medicare Advantage. But when you go with the Medicare supplement plan, the letters get them a little bit confused. So I wish there was something, maybe plan one, maybe number it rather than letter it. But I think they do that to confuse them and make them, I don't know, I'm not sure, but that's why I'm there and they hire me in order to help them navigate that. So that's a big issue. And then Joe Namath on every commercial you can imagine. I'm a Jet fan, so I try to give him a little bit of, I don't know if that's good publicity or bad, but A lot of people call me, hey, what was Joe Namath talking about on that commercial with you could add benefits and pay less? So I'm already digging myself out of a hole because that's what they heard. Typically, it doesn't really apply to everybody. It depends on county, where they live. So you have to, I know you didn't want to get into the weeds, but that brings us into the weeds, basically what plan they might have and apply to that. So there's a lot of people that when they turn 65 or they're already on a plan and they're looking to renew, they get bombarded with mail, phone calls from who even knows, and they get very confused. And that's when I get these calls. I got a call from so-and-so. What did they mean by this? And you have to work your way out of it. So it's tough.
I think the amount of mail they get and the phone calls, as those go up, then I think their understanding of their options and their informedness of making a decision goes down. It's that information overload thing. And that's what I think, especially with the Medicare, that's when you really need someone who knows it really well inside and out to help you walk through the options. Because there's so many details in there with the prescription parts and all that stuff that you have to really be aware of. And you can end up making what you think is a good decision, and that can end up backfiring with the coverage that you have. Okay.
The concerning part is always that they get these mail. There's something in the mail that looks like Medicare cards. It's 100% has to be illegal. They'll send them a picture of, or not a picture, but a cardboard cutout of their Medicare card, the red, white, and blue card. It'll say their name on it, but it'll actually appear as the laminate card or paper card, and they think, "Oh, Mark, what happened? I already signed up." I don't believe you did. So it's very sensitive, and you have to take really good care and be very meticulous with the whole thing. So
yeah, and that group of the population, they can be easily influenced or tricked into seeing something that looks like something else.
It's scary.
Yeah. All right. So without sharing any confidential info or details on the client, can you give me an example of maybe a situation where you helped change someone's situation for the good?
Yeah. So just recently, actually, I had a client. So typically my clients, they will be turning 65. So they're already enrolled on a group plan. Like we mentioned before, they're coming off the plan. It's going to be cheaper for them monthly if they go directly to Medicare. So I had a client that was doing that. She's 60. She was turning 65. She was getting all the wrong information from her benefits department. Whoever it was that was there might have been newer, may have not been too briefed on Medicare, if you will. So all of the information she came in, she listed everything that they printed out for her. Not that it was all wrong, but it was not steering her in the proper direction. So you basically like a white erase board. Okay, let's erase this and plug this in. Make sure we're doing step 1, step 2, step 3, and then ultimately get her all set up completely. So misinformation is a problem when it comes to this, because that's why they hire somebody like us in order to help them make sure it's proper. Because one wrong mess up with Medicare, you could be paying a fine typically from Medicare for the rest of your life on the government platform. So you have a good amount of time in order to make sure you're making the right choice when you're turning 65. But it's the people that are already 65, retired, possibly around 67, where it's like a shotgun type deal where, hey, we have to get coverage right now. And that's where if you move too fast, you can mix up. So backtrack any sort of information from somebody that may not know exactly how Medicare works. That's where I kind of come in and become the superhero and make sure it's all good. So it definitely saves her.
Step through the weeds.
Yeah, I saved her some heartache and stress. Okay. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. So let's switch gears. What would you say is probably your biggest life accomplishment up to this point?
Life accomplishment in terms of in business?
Could be personal or work or both.
My biggest life accomplishment. I didn't know you were going to throw a curveball. I recently got married in December of 2020.
Awesome.
And it was in the height of COVID. It was, we weren't sure whether or not every day in New Jersey, we were checking whether our governor was going to shut it down or whatever the case was, because there was gatherings of the number of people per gathering, whether it be churches or weddings or whatever the case was, we were monitoring hardcore. So we had our wedding, thank God. And that morning, we got an alert from New York, the New York governor, that they were shutting down everything that day. So we were concerned. But everything went off without a hitch. We had the wedding, and it was at one point my wife and I, we looked around, and the people that were there was a lot of people that were scared. They canceled week before, some people morning of, which what are you going to do? Those people, well, I'm not sure. If you knew COVID was around, you could have gave us a little bit more notice, but it is what it is. But the biggest accomplishment for us was looking around for the people that were there, our family members, our close friends. And it was a room full of love. It was a time where everybody I think they needed that event more than anything during that time throughout our lives. And the last 2 years have been crazy. And we just looked around and people were smiling, they were laughing. It was a bunch of joy. And I'm happy that we were able to do that. And on top of it, I mean, her and I've never had somebody like her to confide in my entire life, whether it be family, friends. And she's the one that kind of brought us through that dark time and made sure everything was nice and tidy. So she's my best accomplishment, and she's.
Well, they say if you ask guys who's your best friend, adult males, most of them say their wife.
I don't know.
Yes, it's true. But then if you ask women who's your best friend, it's usually another woman, even though they're married.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's really interesting.
So I'd like to redact my statement. No, I'm kidding.
No, you can't. We can take it out when we do the edit. All right. So outside of the business, tell me something that you're really passionate about personally.
Yeah, I'm a big sports guy. I like playing baseball. I still play baseball. Not sure if I'm good, but I still play. Just getting out there, have the competitive nature, because being in this environment, it's still competitive. It's nonstop, and baseball to me is, there are times where it's very silent during the game, and then there are times where you have to really get on your horse and make a play. So I like the anticipation. So I like baseball. Pretty active in everything that I do. I work out quite often, 4 or 5 days a week. What else am I passionate about? My wife and I are having a baby in June.
Oh, so okay. Congratulations.
Gearing thank you. Gearing my mind to be as good as I could be there. So
yeah, that would be a big life change. Make sure you have your life insurance in order, Mark. Yeah. I'm going to check on you, dude.
Yeah. And coffee. A lot of coffee too.
That's right. Lots of coffee. All right. So what do you think is your biggest opportunity you see in the future for you?
So with the ever-changing world of private health insurance, I think it's going to be a major paradigm shift into life insurance and Medicare, making sure that we're getting into that market rather heavily, because health insurance, we don't know. It could be here one day, and then the next day it could be, a government type health insurance. So people
do you think that's probably the biggest opportunity of the practice too, of Hanson and Ryan?
Yeah, well, so you're saying for us in terms of.
Well, I was asking for you, but then I'm also curious about for the company as a whole.
Yeah, so I mean, we have the benefits department here, which I'm one of the the main guys here. We always talk about it all the time. We say, hey, are we dually licensed? Are we licensed in property and casualty? And then we also, life and health is good, but what if health drops off eventually? So the biggest opportunity would be to make sure that we're setting ourselves up where, God forbid, the rug gets pulled out from underneath us. There's something else to roll into, which the main focus would be either the life, the health, the Medicare, or get into the commercial and personal line side of things as well. So, okay.
And is that what you see as being probably the biggest challenge or obstacle that needs to be overcome? Is that you don't know about the health insurance world?
Yeah, that would be my biggest fear, would be that the health insurance side of being a private individual broker, it would get taken away and offered just from the government level. Yeah. So,
and what about for the firm or for the practice? Biggest obstacle do you see that needs to maybe be addressed or overcome?
I think more so with the agency, I think we do a pretty good job of playing in every single bucket. So it would just be more so if health does go away, that we all become cross-trained in everything. So we're, lethal. We could really, know it all and be a Swiss Army knife. So I think more so probably cross-training would be the biggest obstacle, where there are times where the people on the commercial side of the business don't really know about health, and the guys on health side, we don't really know so much about the coverages on the commercial side. So I think that could be something we could learn all together.
All right. So, Mark, if people wanted to learn more about you or get in contact, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. So I always make myself available, whether it's email, personal line, direct line in my office. So my cell phone is probably always the best way. And then my office line, my direct line sources to my cell phone. So I always give out my direct line and that's how it goes. Yeah.
Okay. And then what's the website of the company where people can find more information about you?
Yes. So it's www.hanson-ryan.com. And that's HANSON-RYAN.com.
Fantastic. Mark, listen, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with me today. It's been a true pleasure to have you. We covered a lot of ground there, but I think that was a lot of good information. And I do want to thank everyone for tuning in, for listening to the Confident Retirement Podcast, brought to you by LPF Advisors, where we are raising the retirement confidence of everyday people to another level, one show at a time. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, for listening. We will see you next time. Be well. Take care.
You've been listening to the Confident Retirement Podcast with Kris and Mark from LPF Advisors. For more information on them and retiring confidently, please visit lpfadvisors.com. If your ears are pleased and your mind is now at ease, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.